this meeting to order. We are at 5:02 or 3, somewhere in there. Can't read it from this angle.
3 from here.
All right. So we have no recognition of any visitors. We're short on our own people at the moment. So let's go ahead with the approval of the minutes and the warrants and the agenda. Make a motion.
Move we approve minutes, the agenda, and the awards.
And then David will be yours. So there's
Easy
3 of
for
us.
me tonight.
All right, all in favor?
Did you have discussion?
Yeah, discussion.
Oh, okay, good.
On the second page, under unfinished business, most recent draft of the study committee report and articles, it mentions that subjects include real estate, school closure, makeup of the board, and language in some areas of the document and more. And I would like to specifically say the 3 issues that I raised, since I was the only one.
Oh, okay, if you'll just, so Mr.
Yep.
Scholes said.
Question the accuracy of the reductions in the tax rate.
Just hold on, accuracy, reduction of tax.
And the tax rate, yeah. The savings from ratio and flexible staffing. And the
Ratio and flexible
staffing. And the source of savings from special ed.
Flexible. Source of savings from special ed.
Yes, thank
Okay,
you.
I will be happy to do that.
And did you also reflect, as long as we put that in, you also reflected that we're just opening it up to?
Reflect what?
Yeah. Well, you say that reviewed the articles, but as long as we're listing that out, we want to say that Frank Rucker gave a full explanation
Oh, okay. Oh, yes, gotcha.
and answered David's concerns.
Well, he didn't answer my concerns, he commented on them.
Well, he gave his opinion on the
Yeah.
concern, on David's concerns.
So you can say he gave his opinion on the concerns, that'd be great.
I think it was only Frank for all of them, right?
Okay.
Okay, there's Mary. Is Andy coming to you now?
Yeah, we had interviews run late, I'm sorry.
All right, and then the agenda and the minutes and the warrants. So we're on that motion. Can we go ahead and vote now? All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstention? I have
We
to
need-
vote too.
we have to
Aye.
have 3.
You're right. All voting, all 3 of us. Write that down. Okay. We'll go ahead and go right on to, I think Jeri, since Mary's just sitting down, we'll go to noteworthy accomplishments. Any comments from you?
Oh, I wasn't really prepared to share anything because we shared last week.
We always like to give opportunities to share.
Oh, well, that's nice.
Jeri's like, can I get a second?
Actually, I can share that my first Maple Leaf writing celebration I went to at Green Street, and we had 7 students from Oak Grove that followed it all the way through, quite daunting for a little school. And 2 of our Oak Grove students came in first and second. So
Oh, that's really good.
yeah, kudos to Oak Grove. But it's a fabulous
It's a great program.
And it's really fun to watch that. That's noteworthy. Pass.
Don't worry, someone else will use your time.
I know.
Yeah, you can talk
So-
over the 1%.
Yes.
That's right.
That's not.
That's what
I'm
she's
sure-
saving
Yeah.
her.
That's what I'm prepared for.
Mark.
Okay,
He has a list.
a few things. Big one, this past weekend we had our 4th annual Tulip Trot event.
I was not.
It was a huge success. We had over 300 runners.
Runners,
Tons- Runners and walkers, yep. Lots of volunteers, lots of community cheering
Had the
folks on.
perfect day.
Beautiful
The
day.
next day was so cool.
Yeah. We raised, at this point, $16,700.
Oh, I thought it was like 11.
So we've broken records this year.
Nice.
It's fantastic.
So we feel like we're really on to something. Got our little niche, and we're hoping
Got the kids'
to,
names in the paper.
yeah, expand on it next year, continue to learn from year after year, and, you know, turn it into a, you know, an annual spring event that Brattleboro community can rely on.
You should have them run to the farmer's market so everybody can have lunch and then put their names in there.
It would get flatter than the current round.
Yes, it would be.
So a ton of work goes into it. You know, basically school year worth of planning. Tremendous PTO participation and some key staff members. So it was a really exciting day. Some other things, we have our teddy bear tea tomorrow morning. So we'll have some incoming kindergartners at the school for school sing, followed by some activities in the library. We have a Green Street School Drama Club currently. I've been working for a good 8 weeks or so. About 20 kids, second graders and third graders involved in the drama club. They'll be giving their final presentation performance on June 2nd at 6 o'clock. So again, that's second and third graders. This has been a program that we've kind of developed with after starting our relationship with New England Youth Theater, which is a 4th, 5th, 6th program. So again, next year, hopefully we'll focus on getting 2 plays accomplished, along with the work with Town School Theater will continue. On May 11th, we had a evening band performance. Very successful program, 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. Beautiful night. Lots of families came out to observe that. And just a couple other notes. This week is the final week of our after-school programming of the school year. Civil War Museum, 6th grade puts on, is always a great event. We'll be up at the Crow Lot on Tuesday afternoon. If you're out, running errands and see all of us up at the Crow Lot, stop by. It's generally a really well done program. And then, in conclusion, that was just a reminder, Girls on the Run as well this weekend. And I have a couple of resumes I'd like to present to you. One, a part-time worker, Greg Montgomery, who we'd like to bring on as a technology integration teacher. He currently works at Oak Grove School. Jeri hired him in the fall, and he'll continue at Oak Grove and work also at Green Street School next year on a part-time basis. So this is part of that grant money that we were afforded through Title I. So
1-year contract?
What's that?
Is it a 1-year grant?
yes, yeah. So looking forward to working with Greg. I've heard great things from Oak Grove, and he certainly did well in his interview.
So would he be full-time between the 2 schools or no?
He'll
It's only
still
like
be,
one day
he'll
or
be like 30 hours between the 2 schools. I think. He still has one day that he works in Dover.
Oh, okay.
Multiple copies there.
Oh, thank you.
So is he a contracted person or is he under the agreement?
Now, because he's up to 30 hours, he'll be able to have benefits and he'll be, but we were making sure that he knows that it's a 1-year contract because we're not certain.
Driving around in circles?
Right.
So that's Greg, and then I also have academic support teacher resume. We've had a number of paraprofessionals retiring, so I've decided to reconsolidate that money into a certified teacher rather than paraprofessional, so we're actually saving money on this hire. But her name is Megan McGrath. She'll be probably graduating this weekend, actually, from Champlain College. So she'll be coming to start the year with us. And
What's the position again?
academic support teacher. Yeah.
So is that a new position?
New position. Yeah. So consolidating some retirements and changing the direction of how to use those funds. And she'll be working on K1 and 2, providing math and literacy support through enrichment and intervention.
So Mark worked with Frank to make sure that the numbers were there from the retiring paras to cover the salary and benefits.
It's actually a reduction.
It's a reduction, right?
Sure.
So, Lyle, maybe you're the one to answer this. How does it work when we are actually adding on a new staff position? I mean, I understand that the budget isn't really affected, but we're still adding on a staff position. And is it a one-year contract or is it what we're doing?
I'm assuming right now it's a 1 year because most of our first years are 1 year.
Be your first contract, so
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the, what is it,
Well, Andy,
yeah, another
yeah,
letter.
yeah, that one.
Yeah.
there's what?
Trial, it's like a trial period, right? Not really. They're on,
Right, but some of the
It's not-
contracts are
It's not a
specifically
10-year
1 year.
position, it's,
I mean, everybody is hired with that, right?
In the
Some of
first
them are 1 year.
time that they're hired, but generally, we make sure that it's clear to them that their first year is, they're on a 1 year contract.
Because like the other position, it's a 1 year contract because we know that we might not have
The
grant.
funding will
Right.
go back, right?
So this position, though, we're not representing to that person that it's funded by that.
no,
No.
no.
Because I'm just concerned in general that we add staff. Even if we're reducing paras, but we're still adding staff.
Well, you could also look at it that we're reducing, is it 3 paras, and we're adding 1 person, so we're still reducing by 2 people.
which is also the recommended way
Right.
to go about it
Under
these
the
days.
PICUS report.
Yeah, but we weren't over, if you looked at the PICUS report, we weren't over in the numbers of academic support. And we weren't under, we were right on, if I remember. So now we're actually over in the academic support position. The recommendation of the PICUS report is just to make sure we have certified teachers at all times. I'm not saying it's a bad decision or
Yeah.
anything else, I'm just concerned on how the process.
I also think it's gonna be a lot harder to, these days, to have a position that's grant funded transition into a permanent position.
Well, this isn't grant funded though.
The other one is though.
Right.
Yeah,
But the real question I want answered is, who's the jerk that gave this woman an A- in something?
As it always.
3.960.
I mean, she comes really highly recommended. Her advisor at college, stated she's I think it's in the letter, the best candidate that she could offer within the 18 years she's been doing the job. So
Nice catch.
I think it's a good person to invest in and
Get her a good
hopefully
mentor.
train and mentor.
Keep her around for 20 years.
Yep.
That's it.
So not to belabor it though, but in general, is there a process that the principals come before the board and say we're going to change positions around, or is it just?
Frankly, this is the first time I've ever done something.
It's the
like
first
this.
time I've seen
Yeah.
it too. Well, except that Jen, when
Yeah.
she was at Oak Grove, she had
Yeah.
switched somebody
Yeah.
from
The librarian
the
to
librarian
to library tech.
Yeah.
tech, so it was kind of an expansion.
It's kind of just, it's really a courtesy thing, but it's helpful because if we see the change in the number and don't know what's going on,
Yeah.
then, then it comes up in a money question rather than
Yeah.
a operations question.
So I guess
But
to be
yeah.
really blunt, I'd rather hear about it before we do the hiring.
Yeah.
As-
can
Well,
establish.
that's one of the reasons things go smoothly is we.
So
Maybe-
present the idea before actually starting the.
Yeah, just because I'm so conscious of the numbers
Yeah.
of teachers and the ratios that we keep looking at.
Mhm.
I mean, in both cases, the other one we were talking about was the librarian tech person, and in this case, it sounds like a really well thought out thing. But I'm just thinking always about.
Yeah,
long-
that makes sense. I understand that.
Andy, you were starting to say something?
Well, I think you can look at it as this is an opportunity to set that expectation.
Okay, so am I clear enough that that's my expectation?
Yeah.
Like
Get
to see
it, get it,
Jason
also
Place.
get it in the minutes.
So Jane, we want to put it in the minutes that in the future, the board would like to see, well, to discuss whether
Right.
that staffing changes makes sense in our direction that we all want to head. So all that said, Mark, sorry.
That's all right.
Then we could do a motion or to approve the hirings of these two.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are you done?
Yes.
Before we go on to Andy, there's something that sort of ties those two together, and that's a 1% report from Diane Collette from Green Street School on the Maple Leaf writing. So it's just a 1% report out, and it kind of ties both Jeri and Mark's reports together. So we'll send that around, you can look at before we go to.
Okay, Andy.
Well, it tis the season for hiring.
Hired?
So, sorry I was late. We actually been doing a lot of interviews lately, and we ran over today. So we have a recommendation to hire someone, and we'd ask that you also accept a resignation letter. So I'm going to pass the resignation letter down to board members, and it's Kim Breton, who is a fourth grade teacher at Academy. In her, it's her second year. Her first year she started in November or December, I believe. So she's been there a little more than a year and a half. She and her husband are moving to Florida.
Well, I guess that'd be a long commute.
Yes, it would. So,
She was great fun. She was fun.
Passing around for a while.
Went on a field trip with her.
oh,
Does this have a question about this, or is it?
It's just a report out from this past year.
So hold the question until Andrew's done.
so,
So we should, that's it for resignations? So
Yeah.
we should accept, motion to accept with regret?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right,
she needs to name.
and Andy?
Okay, and then we have a recommendation to hire a fourth grade teacher, not for that position, from another position. I think maybe one short, right?
So before we do that, do we have to have a resignation?
No, you already did that. You already got the resignation.
This is-
It's a different fourth grade teacher position.
Well, the resignation was Pam Mail,
Okay,
who was in first grade, left. We moved Colleen Carrasquillo from fourth to first, thus the opening occurs in
so that's my
fourth.
question. So we don't have an actual resignation because she's not leaving the school?
Well, you don't have, you do have a resignation, it's just not for
But we're hiring.
this position. So,
When someone shifts, they don't resign from that position?
correct.
That's
But
what-
in order to do this, we had to have a resignation, because we're hiring someone, right? One goes out, one comes in, but where we put that person, there's some discussion. That
Right,
makes
so
sense?
if everyone follows the musical chairs, there's 3 teachers of 4th graders. One is resigning to go to Florida. One is moving to the academic support position that we've already accepted a resignation for last meeting.
First grade.
So there's,
Which opens the
Two.
first grade position.
so that opens 2 4th grade positions.
Right, and one is in front of you right now. Is there enough to go around?
Yes, if Jill keeps moving.
Yes. So is
I was thinking,
contact the works.
So
this is what I was-
this is Ann Moore Odell, who is presently teaching in Keene at the Wheelock School. Very strong teacher, comes very highly recommended. I have observed her teach in her classroom. She's great at her school. At the present time, she is in 5th grade. She's taught 3rd, 4th, and 5th there, I believe. Has a master's degree in writing, which she uses in the classroom consistently. Very strong writer, very strong teacher of writing, so her students write quite regularly. She's very well versed in Ames Web. She's sort of the school's leader in Ames Web. And in Keene, they're doing a lot of the same things that we're doing. They're using its web, they're an ITI school, response to instruction. So she was clearly, in the eyes of the committee, head and shoulders above everybody else. We did interview several people, and they were all considered, and she was the one who was unanimously selected.
So we'll take a motion to accept this
This
recommendation.
or all, we want to do them all at once?
You don't have anybody else?
No, that's.
Well, I thought you had 4 hirings. You said
Well,
once a year.
Well, yeah, we just, we're interviewing still, we're not done, so there'll be others,
Accept the
there'll be a
nominations.
couple others coming.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So Andy, one more point of clarification, when people shift, is it, just somebody asked me in the community, so is it common practice to announce the, like in the case of the academic support position,
Yeah.
that the 4th grade teacher moved over to that 1st grade academic support?
Yeah.
So is it common practice to announce that, or is it common practice to first give preference to anybody within the building that wants to?
Well,
Or actually any position?
okay, so you're asking an important question, and I want to clarify that. Because there is contractual language that we have to follow when there's an opening in our buildings. And the contract requires us to give first consideration for when there's an open position for teachers, for those who are in our district. Our district is Pratt Town. Second consideration for those who are in our union, okay? And it outlines what that process is, what it means to some degree to give first consideration. So that's for a position that's posted. So when we have the discretion to move people really within our buildings and also within our free schools, but we don't really do that much of that. But within our building, it's common practice for people to move. So if someone leaves a grade level position, let's say 6th grade, and someone's been teaching 4th, but they really feel like they would like to, it would be a good career move for them at this point in time. They have more interest in 6th grade. And for someone to say, I know Kim is leaving, I would love to go to 6th grade. So we have the discretion to move folks around because their contract is for Brattleboro Town School District. It isn't for 3rd grade or 4th grade. So we can do that. We have that ability as principals to move someone from 3rd grade to 6th. But then the opening that gets posted got transferred from 3rd to 6th. So we have to post an opening because one exists. So the resignation would come in for 3rd, from a 3rd grade teacher, but the opening would get transferred to 6th. That then gets posted, and then when someone from the district were to apply, that's what they're applying for. Okay, so.
That's a good explanation. I didn't know how it worked. But technically then, when we've seen actual resignations, like when someone switched within our schools, that isn't necessarily, they don't really have to resign from Green Street 6th grade in order to move to Oak Grove 1st grade and be rehired. You guys would actually just be able to do that without.
Correct, and we actually
had
did that
that.
earlier this year with someone who went from Oak Grove
Right,
to Academy grade 3.
right, which caused an opening in my school that you approved a hire for last board meeting.
So the board doesn't approve internal transfers. I don't think you want to run the school and approve, well, if we move this teacher from 1st to 3rd grade. So we do that, but you approve when we hire a teacher. You approve that. We bring it to you, we recommend to hire, and then you approve it.
So just one more question to
Sure.
think broadly on the Act 46 and the consolidation that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Then that sort of movement could actually happen without any
SU
board,
wide.
really, without any board saying yes or no. It could move around.
Yeah. It could, and I would assume there'd be, there would have to be some contractual language changes to allow that to happen. And they would, I mean, that would be a discussion, I think, that the superintendent's office, the board would have with the union.
Also.
Yeah.
So
The union.
the union would have to, because the contract is between the school board and the union, so you'd have to ultimately agree to some procedures and change that
That's one of
language.
the things we haven't really discussed in Act 46 at all.
Those are all the things that cost money, lawyers and negotiators.
I don't know that they cost money to do that. I mean, there's contractual language already in there, but it is something just to be aware of.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is that someone has to be licensed and qualified, so, for example, if something were to happen at the middle school, if they had a reduction in force, seventh grade teacher, and we had an opening in Brattleboro town, they don't have any rights for that position if they're not licensed, because the secondary license is different, so they're not licensed for elementary, and that would still apply.
So did you have anything else on your administrative report?
Did you mention any
No, you
right
should
to?
do that.
Well, Mary, she could speak to that, because Mary actually went, I didn't actually go to it, but Mary accompanied our fourth graders there on Friday.
Yeah, I went on my first field trip. I can't, that was my first opportunity to go to NEYT and to see a show and to see children from all of our schools participate in that show. And
It's the first time you've been in the theater?
it was. Unfortunately, I should have been in sooner. But the show itself, the way the kids performed, the way the audience behaved appropriately and kindly and participated in the show as a welcoming audience. It was just wonderful. The kids did an amazing job, and the costuming was great. And I can't say enough about the work that they do at NEYT and the work that I can't take any credit for, but that has been done to create that strong partnership. I got to see kids light up in a different way than I hadn't seen at school. Something about being involved in theater was really wonderful. So it was a great show. And they did shows Saturday and Sunday as well. It was an open dress on Friday.
It's always good to hear principals getting out on field trips.
Yeah.
It was great.
Don't get to do that enough. All right, so.
Well, I have just two more
Oh,
quick things.
sorry.
So ESOL night, our annual ESOL potluck dinner,
That was great.
was a week ago, and Heidi Pancake did a wonderful job. We had quite a few parents come with their children, and it's always a special night. This year, we always have activities for the kids to do, and this year she got the idea to make a cardboard arcade. So the kids with her, and much of this occurred after school, over a 2-day period, kids stayed after school and they made things like, well, Mark will be familiar with, skee ball and
Oh, yeah, that stuff.
air hockey, and they collected big cardboard boxes, and it was pretty cool. Lots of fun. And then they got tickets, and everyone who came, including parents, got tickets, so many tickets to play these games of chance. And the students had to record data, and they're using the data in their classwork with her in math. So it's pretty interesting. A lot of fun. The kids had a great time. It's always a fun night.
Let's point out too that she does a great job of the kids, like my own daughter, who have aged, well, not aged out, but advanced out of that program, and still inviting them and keeping in contact with them. She just has such a wonderful way about her that I think that the program goes far beyond just the language with her.
Yeah, she does a lot of work with she's a teacher, social worker, friend to parents. She's a liaison to many parents. Often we have parents that are here, for example, at SIT, and it's the first time in the United States. They may be very limited English speakers, and she's the liaison contact. She has gotten housing for people help them to get a vehicle, arrange transportation. There's all kinds of services that someone new to the United States with limited English, doesn't know the community, there really isn't an agency, there isn't anyone who can do that, so she does a lot of that. It's great. And on a final note, County Fair Day is this Friday at noon to 2 o'clock.
Is there an annual Andy event
Yes.
happening?
There is, we're downplaying that this year.
You hope.
Amazing.
So they're gonna give you a year back?
Well, I wasn't gonna do anything this year, I told some kids that, and a few kids got upset, and a couple kids said, "Oh, you said it every year, I know you're doing something, I know it."
Are you kissing any farm animals?
No animals this year.
Guilford
Giving the animals a break.
Guilford did that
Guilford
this year.
did that one
Was it
this year.
noon to 2, Andy?
Noon to 2, yes.
Oh, and thank you for this.
That's this Friday, right?
This
Yes.
Friday. Supposed to be
Perhaps
good weather,
it's,
too.
it's time to pass it to the vice principal to
Yeah.
have the tradition move on.
Well, this will be the first annual Mary in the Dunk Tank event. So, Mark, bring your pitching arm.
Yeah, I shall indeed.
It's usually very cold water.
75 on Friday.
Wetsuit
Yeah,
is
it's supposed to be
good.
nice.
I always felt
Nice.
So feel free to come on by.
Warm water helps too.
It does,
It
yes.
isn't usually.
It's right from the fire trucks. So.
Noon until
It
12.
won't be warm.
And they're good at dunking, it was amazing. All right, so that moves us to committee.
David had a question.
Oh, you have a question on 1%?
Yeah, just, I've never gotten it's like a job description for the Maple Leaf writing contest. Yeah, and I also noticed that the advice says the work is accomplished on the following days, all Fridays, a non-work day for me. What is that?
So Diane is an academic support teacher, but she's not full-time. So she picks up some extra money through enrichment, the Brattleboro Enrichment Fund, and she does that on her non-contracted day.
So the Maple Leaf writing contest is no longer part of
It's part of,
what we offer regularly through our enrichment programs now.
I would assume that she does some of it during that, because I know it's also taking place at Oak Grove and at Academy, correct? So.
Not with her.
But she also took on a lot of the coordination, there's a
Right.
lot of administration and coordination of the program for the
Well,
all
this
three
is
schools.
always, this is what the enrichment coordinator always did. These are the, the dinners and the judges and all that
Right.
stuff.
But the actual writing piece, I think like Lexi's doing it at Oak Grove, Esther's doing it at Academy, Diane's probably doing it during her work time at Green Street, but the other stuff that she has listed there is what she's doing in her non-work time.
So if I understand David's point though,
We're
or
not sure what it is.
question,
Maybe you can-
well, where's the funding coming from? Hasn't the funding in the past for the whole Maple Leaf program been out of the normal budget?
The
And
staff
this-
for the enrichment coordinator, which is now
Comes-
different.
So this year it looks like it's coming out of the 1% as
As opposed to
to,
the,
is that a correct understanding?
I would have to look
That's your
at it.
question,
Well,
isn't it?
Well,
So
yeah,
the
and it's,
administrative.
and
It
that
makes-
doesn't really matter all that much. What matters is that if somebody's doing this on her off work day, that doesn't represent the investment that we have in the quality of this program and how we want it to be seen by the staff and everybody else. This is really crucial.
Well, no, it represents it because she got paid, it just got paid out of a different
Yeah, but
pocket.
I understand. It's just, I don't want it to be, if it turns out that there's nobody that's got time to do this part of it, then all of a sudden we're looking at not having the Maple Leaf writing contest. That's not okay.
Yeah.
So however it needs to be stabilized, so make sure it stays stable.
Does anybody know why it ended up in 1% this year?
Well, her position is not full-time. Esther is, and the full-time person at Academy, she's there 5 days a week. And you have Lexi for full-time, but she
She's
does 2 different
full-time,
jobs.
but she's librarian, technology, and does enrichment, so kind of 3 jobs.
So the way it was presented is that, well, Esther has a full schedule, she's with kids pretty much every period of the day, and these administrative tasks that need to get done couldn't be done during Diane's workday, and they couldn't get done during Esther's. So the solution was that Diane would do them on her off days, but she would need to get compensated. So 1% was the avenue we went down.
Makes sense.
It makes sense. I agree with David, though, we want to keep it going, so
Yeah, I
one
think it's,
percent is good.
I recognize and support completely the approach to enrichment, you know, the multi-leveled approach, and that everybody gets enrichment, everybody gets help where they need it. I think though that it's very easy, and we hear the criticism, at least I hear the criticism a lot, that we don't do enough for the kids that tend to perform at the higher levels. And this is one of those programs where they really buy into it, and it really improves their writing and great results and great support from families and stuff. So I don't want it to kind of slide away because of the focus on the other stuff.
And I think
We're committed to the
if,
program.
if it ever came to the point where Diane is full-time, we would want to look at 1% because it would mean one of the three of them probably would take it on as 1% on Saturdays or in the evenings or something.
Yeah.
But I agree, and I think
Or
probably.
an additional stipend or something.
Something, right, that all of the people involved in this would not want to see this go. It's a great
Yeah.
program.
But those little structural changes are the things that wind up damaging programs. You're not watching it all of a sudden, it's like nobody wants to do it.
Okay, moving on to committee reports, which I guess policy council would be kind of important since Deb is not here.
Well, and I was at study committee, so no idea.
Has anyone seen a recent policy council
No,
minute? I don't think
one.
so, right? It's been quite a while.
No.
I might just send a quick email right now and see if we remind her of that. So, Energy Committee, Finance, Diversity. Any reports on that? I think that's pretty much you, Mark.
Yeah, finance is next Wednesday. So I've nothing to report since our last meeting. And Ron is what, doing diversity? And building committee is, we've laid foundations and that's about it.
We're building,
Yeah, it's stuff like that.
but there's something in the works with the wood heat project in Green Street.
So the report that's on our agenda to do under new business, that Peter Yost was gonna come and talk to us.
Yeah.
Turns out that they're not quite ready to give that report.
Oh,
So they were looking at the second June meeting, we need to discuss what our schedule is for all that. So that part is off as well, for not on the agenda anymore for today. So, nobody went to diversity night to get a report from that? That was last Friday, 2 Fridays ago?
First Friday.
First Friday, so it's 2 Fridays ago. Okay, then I guess it was a resounding success.
We were all at the retirement recognition dinner.
Is that another?
Was that the same night?
Yeah.
It's Friday before. It was the night of rain, they were very cold and rainy.
We were at the
On
cross.
diversity night.
That's what
Yes.
When it's cold and rainy, it's time for the cross.
everything we've been at. The sunburn is finally gone from one of those. All right, so then it's Act 46 and pre-K and others on unfinished. So I think we'll start with pre-K, and David, you were gonna,
Yeah,
Okay, go ahead. I
well,
also
you have minutes, or,
Yep,
I
thanks to
didn't,
Mary, yeah.
I haven't seen any of that, so,
So I'll hand these
Yeah.
out.
Great.
Thank you to Mary Ross, who took really good minutes at the follow-up. You'll remember each group spoke, had time to discuss questions, and then we adjourned into a classroom. And in that classroom,
You were?
unfortunately, I wasn't able to go there because I was with some of you at Act 46, but the report I got was that it was a very thoughtful, good discussion about moving forward, and I think you were in that discussion. So, but here are the notes that Mary took on the ideas and discussion that happened in that.
well, I encourage us to look through these and pretty carefully and just kind of become knowledgeable about what's going on. It's so much, I really knew nothing about it when the forum started, and I was surprised to see all these people. And there are lots of issues, lots of topics, lots of questions, and lots of opportunities as
before you
well.
went, did anyone get a good sense or feel of who all was at the forum? What constituencies they represented? Were they all
No, there were some teachers, some current public school teachers, some current preschool teachers,
in
private and here. There were a couple of agency people, there were some parents.
There were
and-
parents there too?
I'm sorry?
Were there
I
parents?
believe so, yeah.
Okay.
And I think two or three people that are involved in the, one way or another in the state process of
So it's a pretty good cross-section.
implementing the, yeah, it was, yeah. And so anyway, the main things that came, and it really corresponded with what, with the information that was shared at the World Cafe the week earlier, the week before, that Deb had with all of with all their staff and all the people involved in the programs. The things they talked about were the need for professional development, support, and the idea, one of the ideas that came out, which was really great to hear, was they started talking about how can we implement professional learning communities, how can we take advantage of the resources we have. And Marissa and Paul were kind of really nodding their heads in that part of the conversation. The need for peer support, the need for better data, flexibility for families was a really major point, that some people don't have transportation, they don't have, they can't have a regular, they can't get their kids there the same hours every day, or they have part-time jobs, or they need more hours than are available. And so there needs to be a lot more sense of knowing about families and basically dealing with the whole family rather than just, we got the kid there. Building long-term relationships with families and also trying to keep it affordable. And then the last thing was the pre-K in the schools, how was, if it happens, or when it happens, or to what degree it happens, what's the transition going to be like? How is the quality of private and public going to compare? Just all of that has to unfold, and there are plenty of private providers right now. There are more kids going to be coming in because of the state funding, although the 2-hour, everybody here is probably aware of that, but the 2-hour per day amount that the state's paying tends to not help the families that we sort of recognize as needing the most help, the ones that need the most support to get their kids ready for school. So how that legislation might change, or how that support might change, or how that can be put into a sort of a family-related model instead of just, you got a kid, you get 2 hours, 10 hours a week, and use it as you can, because it winds up subsidizing people who are very capable of paying for their child care and whose children don't really need public support. Whereas, obviously lots of kids in all over the state.
It's very true, just the way it falls. If you're already a parent that's working, you need much more than 2 hours a day. And if you are a parent that's stay at home, it's probably nice to get a 2-hour break.
Well, people that are working and have 8 hours of childcare, now they only have to pay for 6. Which is, it's great for them, and if we could afford to provide that benefit for everybody and, raise everybody's taxes and pay free childcare for everybody all the time, that would be, the solution.
But does that money actually pay for childcare, or does it only pay for an approved program for 2 hours?
It pays for, childcare, licensed daycare. Yeah,
Licensed daycare or licensed preschool program?
Well, I'm not, you'd have to
Well, that's
ask
what I'm
somebody who
wondering,
knows
if
that.
anybody knows.
But it's for licensed growth preschool.
It's a licensed preschool.
We sign off every year on those forms.
Right, but I'm just thinking of the parent, like in the scenario you're presenting, David. So then the parent who has 8 hours or something of daycare per day and doesn't have the ability to get the child to 2 hours of quality preschool, if they're in a family daycare setting,
Yeah,
then
they can't take
they're not
advantage of it
taking
either.
advantage of it either.
Right. I see,
The
yeah.
way that's structured from.
Yeah. And that's part of the flexibility issue, because if there were some way to transport, these really little kids for 2 hours for that would help. But again, so it's very complicated. It's going to take a long time. I was thinking it would, it was just going to be kind of nuts and bolts thing, just open a couple classrooms and throw some little things in there and everything would be fine. But it's not going to be that way. There are lots of people with lots of different interests, and it's going to be a process of unraveling it.
Mary and Andy and Mark, Jeri, if you guys were on, any other comments from what you had heard?
Well, I was in the classroom with the group that went into the full group discussion. So I mean, there's a lot of conversation, and I think Mary did a good job of identifying the points that the folks made. The one thing I would add is that the first bullet on the first comment, what is Brattleboro Town doing now that should be recognized? I'm sorry, the last bullet says, if every single pre-K child wanted to access the available slots, there would not be enough available slots. So there are enough slots. Secondly, there are kids that are in Head Start, Canal Street, that are kicked out. We had a meeting this morning about one who's coming to Academy. This is a frequent occurrence. It's not an unusual occurrence. They're kicked out because of their behavior. And the behavior is typically triggered by abuse and trauma and life circumstances when they're infants. And
I imagine they're not kicked out quickly from Head Start either.
right. Well, nonetheless, they're out.
Yeah.
So they've been victimized by someone along the way. And now they're further victimized by our system. And we get them, after they've had another set of failures, then their behavior is only worse. That, in fact, by these kids were kicked out, it's worse for them to have gone and get kicked out than it is to not go. And we don't address that. We need to. And we get them, and we put tremendous resources in the kindergarten classrooms to address the issues, including social worker for families, toilet training, buying clothing, and so on and so forth. So we do that, and we'll continue to do that because we should. But it'd be a heck of a lot better for those kids to get them a year earlier, because we're just trying to undo more damage. So the earlier we get them, and there's strong evidence that supports this nationally, the earlier we get them, the better off they're going to be. And we've got to do this quickly to get these kids. They're not disposable, but right now, inadvertently, I think we treat them that way.
Especially in urban areas.
Well, I'm talking about Brattleboro.
Yeah, I understand.
Our own community, right here, in our community today. There are kids today that no one can handle and no one wants. I said that to everybody in the room, that there's not a program in this town right now that can address these kids. So then it becomes our job to do that. And as a board, this is now your challenge. We have to find ways to address the needs of these 4-year-olds. They're getting kicked out of our program.
How many are we talking about? 1, 5, 10?
Before they're 4-year-olds.
Every year when we have our meeting, there's at least I would say 3 to 4. I mean, it can vary, but
In your school or in all the schools?
Oh, that are coming
That's
into kindergarten.
when we sit in our preschool entering kindergarten meetings, I think it speaks to a larger community issue too. A lot of the challenges that we're facing as a Brattleboro community, a lot of needs out there.
Has that Green Street Promise community talked about that at all? Is that,
I haven't been to a meeting in a while, but absolutely.
is there anything happening with that?
Oh yeah, they're meeting regularly.
I
I
know
think there's a
they're
meeting.
meeting,
I think there's a meeting next week. Are you on? Do you get the emails? Of the
I got the emails, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying, is there anything, I thought they only had like a year of a grant and that it would be about now that.
It's ongoing.
But there's other, the Chad, the Building Bright Futures
That's
works on that. The Groundworks Collaborative is also looking at surrounding family, providing and coordinating services to families. Because that's really what you're talking about is before the kid gets to be 4 or 3 and gets kicked out of Canal, there needs to be some help. And you can't just take the kid to a counselor and then take the vet's gonna you gotta deal with the entire family. You get them shelter and you get them food, and then can we get the mom into an internship or into a community college class or something to keep going, because now we've got the daycare too, and the child's getting services, and is there some way we can just move this whole process for this whole family, because otherwise it just recurs and recurs.
Right, and there are many, you're right, there are many agencies who are working very hard, and these folks are very dedicated people, so by no means are my comments intended to say that, otherwise. But in spite of all that, we now have to recognize that we have families that are beyond help of all the agencies that we presently have. And the other elephant in the room is much of that is due to drug addiction. And so there's a whole lot of resources, a whole lot of issues for the community, how we deal with adult substance abuse, the opioid addiction and so forth. But the other piece of this is that many of these adults have young children, and then they're coming to us, and it's tragic, the condition, the state that these kids are in, the level of trauma that they're experiencing, resulting in behaviors that go beyond anything that any of us could imagine to be present in 4- and 5-year-olds. And we're grappling with how do we respond, how do we treat these children. So we are best equipped to do this in the schools right now, in our public schools in Brattleboro. We are best equipped than anyone else in this community, including the Brattleboro Retreat, Community House, or any daycare provider in this town. We are the best equipped, but they don't come to us until till kindergarten. We need to get them earlier.
So, and if I can,
Well, I had mentioned it to the group that I was at this, and where we had moved from in Connecticut, the early Head Start and the Head Start classrooms were all in public schools. I mean, that's obviously something that you want to do. Would that be something that you're looking for?
Yeah,
moving them, to the public school.
Yes. Well, I think everybody agrees.
but that was my question too, because just moving just those kids, we would still be in a situation just like we are in EES now, or in the early Head Start program and the Head Start programs now. What I think I've heard you folks saying before is that it needs to be some sort of a multi-level group and not just these kids that you're talking about.
Well, right, we're talking about having a pre-K program.
That's open to all,
Right.
just like our normal public schools would be.
Right, that's an integrated program, not just the kids who have significant behavioral challenges.
So I guess at this point for me on the board, I feel like we've identified the need and we're all clear on it, and there hasn't been anyone screaming, no, we can't go near that. We've heard from the community saying that there's definitely this need, and then there's some concerns of how it's done in comparison to, or particularly in light that there's a private business. That's what people are doing as well, and competing with taxpayer money is a concern. So can we, as a board at this point, ask the administrators to come back with specifics? What does it look like, and how much does it take, and when can it go forward? So I've heard Deb say for at least a year that she would love to see Head Start coming into the schools.
I think we want to hear from some of the other perspectives before we do that. There's a lot of concern about once once it's in the school, what kind of, what are the services going to be like? Who's going to govern it, or how's it going to be determined? There's concern about obviously the competition part, but also how's it going to get, how does it get paid for? Which budget does it come out of? How will the state's funding be applied to that?
That's what I'm asking for.
And also the kids that you described who get kicked out of Canal Street. if they come into a program in school, the same issues they're gonna need a different kind, they're gonna need a special or a different kind of program. Is that best done in a school? Is that best done in an institutional setting like that, or is it best done in a who knows? You know, I don't know.
Well, I think we do know.
With those
We know.
questions that-
What I'm saying is, we do know. We know that their best chance for success is in our schools, because we have the programs right now that are addressing it, that are changing the lives of kids in kindergarten. We're doing this every day with these kids a year later, and we're pretty successful at it. And what I'm saying is we could be a lot more successful with the most challenging by getting them a year earlier. That would be significant gain for them. The earlier we get them, the better. But we have the programs now in our schools. That's what what STEP is about. STEP is really primarily focused now on in our schools on kids in primary, kindergarten 1, and to some degree 2, maybe 3, and we're seeing those behaviors are gone by the time the kids are in 3rd grade, if they're with us from the beginning.
The behaviors disappear just at school, or is it life-changing enough that the home environment is?
Well, the aggressive behaviors include aggression, acting out disruptive behaviors so they cannot be in a classroom. We're able to extinguish those behaviors and give the kids replacement behaviors. We're most successful when there's at least one parent who buys in and works with us. So no program or no school will be successful if we have so many kids who are diagnosed with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. So that's because of an event or something that's happened to them. They've been traumatized, okay? And then they have behaviors that are because of that. But if the trauma is ongoing, it's not post, but it's ongoing traumatic stress disorder, then you don't have much of a chance, because school is 6.5 hours, maybe longer, an extended day, and then the child goes home, and if they're subjected to more trauma, then they don't have a shot. So, but in those homes that we can, where parents are aware, where they're engaged, then we have a significant success rate.
I think that's a good example of one of the concerns you articulated better than I did about the importance of families, and that the question if a public school setting is the right setting where the kids get dropped off, then they get picked up, and there isn't really staff necessarily to do with the families. If that's not coordinated with all the social service and the other organizations, private and public and nonprofit, that are in the area that are providing support, and there are lots of them providing support to families. And then another concern was if you just move 4-year-olds in, you're still not getting at the base, the cause of the problem, which is even before birth in a lot of cases, and the support that pregnant moms need, and then postnatal, and then right on through the whole process. That if you wait for 3 years, then you have all this to unravel rather than trying to.
So what are you saying, David, that we shouldn't try it for?
Yes. I'm saying that if we just say, okay, we're taking kids at 4 now instead of 5, we've moved it back a year, we will not affect the problem. If we continue to take the institutional approaches and keep all the agencies separated, and everybody in their silos, there's a much higher level of coordination between the state and the public and private sectors in terms of all this program, which is the kind of thing that's happening at Groundsworks, the kind of thing that the Crowds community is trying to work on, the kind of thing that the...
So while they're all trying, do you think it's a bad idea to do the 4-year-olds and the preschools and the
I think we should
school?
be working with that whole community to do it right, instead of just saying, well, we'll do our thing in the meantime.
And I
But
think
all
there are
those
people,
resources,
right, there are
all
people
those
that are
resources that
doing
we
this.
have need to go to the babies as well.
there are people that are doing this. I know Mark Suskin used to be, I think he's now retired at the state level. But it would be interesting to get someone at that level who sees where there are pockets that it's working throughout the state to come and talk with us. Putney has their preschool in their building now, so we have some experience in the ESU putting the preschool into. But as Andy said, we can't just take the kids that are in trauma. We need to have good role
Some
models
balance, yeah.
in that classroom as well. But you're right, it does just, if we just take 4-year-olds, it's just pushing the issues into 3. So it needs to be, like we talk about, wraparound services.
I don't know, there's pushing the issues into 3, it just means we don't get to them, right now we're getting to them at 5.
Mhm.
So what we're saying is we could at least try to do something at 4, and then be aware of the rest, but I think some of that too comes back to what we said when, early education services and Head Start and all that. Deb was saying, we can't solve all of the problems for all of the kids in Brattleboro. There's a limit of what that one facility can do. So I feel kind of like David, you're saying, well, don't try anything. Is that what you're saying?
No, absolutely not. I'm saying work with the other people, the other organizations.
So don't try any 4-year-old
particularly-
preschool, just work with the other organization?
That may be a part of it. I don't know, I don't have the solution, but there are lots of people working on these that have lots of information and lots of experience, and they're all moving in the same direction of trying to get wraparound services to families, to not just get the kid and deal with the kid. And that's the approach, and that there's resistance from the state level, particularly human services and education agencies, to do that work, because it means that they have to get out of their areas and share their budgets. And it's an ongoing problem. The Senate Ed Committee talked about it several times and asked for a report, which wound up in Act 46. And the report they got was really disappointing, and they made it really clear to the agencies that was the case. And when they start up again next year, they're going to go after it once again to try and get greater coordination between those state agencies, so that all the institutions in the state are working in the same direction with all the nonprofits and the other organizations. And I think that I don't know what the exact role is, but Building Bright Futures, as an organization across the state, has some responsibility in coordinating the pre-K programs. So I know that we want to work with them, but it's just to try and approach it on our own institutionally. We'll just draw resources from where they need to go, which is to work with whole families. And it may not be every single family, but we can work with a lot of them. And early identification of these kids, and recognizing at 1 year old that that this kid's going to have some real problems, and this family needs really a lot of support, or that there's an addiction issue.
So I
There's
think
foster
we're all
care, there are all these other things that are.
We're all agreeing there's a major problem. I think that's the first part that we can all agree on.
Yeah.
We agree that there's various people trying various approaches within our town already. So what I was thinking was asking the administration to start looking at a plan that they think from their experience would help address this issue. Are you saying that you don't even think that's worthwhile to go into, looking at
I think the starting point should be to identify the other organizations and the other people in organizations that are working on this as well, particularly those that have responsibility to the state, which is providing the funding for the extra, for the 10 hours a week. And to work with them and start from a collaborative perspective. Don't start in our offices coming up with a plan to present to the rest of the world. Work with the people that are already doing it. Find out what's the most effective way to approach this, what models work. There are plenty of organizations that have had success in various parts of this that have knowledge that we don't have. So I think we should start with, my recommendation would absolutely be to start by finding out who else is involved and getting together with them and coming up with a coherent plan for the community, not just for 4-year-olds. Because it doesn't fix the problem.
Well, I think this is probably a prevalent situation throughout the state. There's got to be models out there someplace that could be tapped. Maybe in one of the larger cities, it's also experiencing the same amount of problems that we are. The first 3 exits off of I-91, maybe they got a problem in the Northeast Kingdom, maybe they got a problem with the Northwest Burlington area.
Yeah.
And they've already delved into the coordination of the various groups. One of the things I think you're going to run into is the various groups that work with the kids are rather loath to share information. And that, I think, is going to be a stumbling block in trying to get a coordinated effort on this. And it's the children and families, social welfare, Department of Labor, they all carve out their little niches and they all want to make their reports glow, and they don't necessarily share best practices with the other agencies. We might need a coordinator, but it might be at a much higher level than what we're talking about in the city or a county. Maybe we need to have the legislators come in and actually take a look at some of the problems that we're experiencing. That's what I think.
Kim, what do you?
I mean, I still don't think it's a bad idea to have the administration look to see, you know, based on what Andy said, look to see what we could potentially do and what would take to set up, and then we could talk to the other agencies to see how they can support it as well. But to wait to talk to everybody, then we're all just, I think we're still just running around in circles. I mean, we need to start someplace. And I don't think it's a bad idea to have the administration start the ball rolling.
Administrators want to throw anything else into this discussion?
I think just like an example, our last admin meeting, just last week, we were meeting with folks from HCRS, DCF, Youth Services.
Person representing the states.
Right, and I think we all understand it needs to be a wraparound, comprehensive approach for many, many families and many, many kids in need. So, you know, we do have that open communication. I think we agree on both sides. It needs to continue to be better and more inclusive so that we are kind of pulling in the same direction to help support families. But high needs community, I think this is a good topic to continue to focus on and discuss, but there's lots of kids living in really rough situations right now that we certainly see in September every year in incoming kindergarten.
And I think one of the drains is the fact there's a lot of redundant services out there. You know, some of the needs are being met on multiple levels and others are going neglected for lack of coordination.
Do you know of anything about at the state level that has?
It used to be Mark Suskin. I suspect he has retired, but it's certainly something I can.
So does everyone agree with that? If we, I think this is, I mean, it's not like we all thought we were going to have a 1-second answer to this type of a discussion anyway, and we just started with the preschool forum. But from hearing what everybody has to say, I'm thinking perhaps Lyle could look into that person, see if maybe they could come down. And I'm thinking we could all think on our comments. I'm with Kim and thinking that, and I hear you, and I agree with the frustration. Where do we get it? We've talked about this for years. And people have talked about this probably since people started to roam the earth. But I also feel like waiting forever, or, you know, just talking about trying to join everybody together in utopia. I don't know how long we wait on that without trying to take some concrete steps and do something that we know we've seen results and can affect. And while adults dither about,
Yes.
kids are feeling it. So I feel like there's a certain amount of pressure there.
Logically, it's the schools that have the most time with the children. You know, DCF, HCRS, they don't necessarily see the kids. They might see the parents, and the parents are conveying some of the difficulties they're having with their kids, but the schools are the front line. And it almost makes sense that we would be the lead organization if we convince the other organizations to support our efforts and referrals. And we are the coordinator, and we could be the coordinators.
Which I think what Mark's saying that is happening, right? Yeah. So I'm wondering about 2 or 3 things. If we could do concretely, if we could do your researching and seeing if this person would have it. David, you could reach out to some of the contacts that you have. And
Well, actually, probably the most useful person to talk to would be Margaret Atkinson. And
Maybe we could ask.
Chloe Leary is another one, and Josh Davis, I think, at Groundworks. They're all just up to
Maybe we
their
could
necks
ask
in
those
these-
folks
with
to
these
actually
families.
come to our next meeting.
June 1st is not going to be a good time.
No, the next meeting that would work. Whatever.
It'll be in the fall.
No, Doesn't need to be the fall, we could do it over the summer.
Well, they need
Well,
to-
yeah. We could.
I mean, I'm not
We
looking for
typically
formal
just have that one.
presentations, I'm thinking of a conversation.
Well, you're right, Margaret would do it.
Chad, were you thinking Chad?
There's also
Yeah,
something
I-
next week that we were all invited to. Did you get that email?
Yeah, that's the Help Kids Grow.
Yeah, that's probably on the same topic. But I'd kind of like to table this one and come back to it, but I don't want this conversation to be going on for ever. I think we need to, but I'd like it to be one of those conversations where we all think about it,
I'm smiling
come
because
back.
it's in the Bible. You know, it has been going on forever.
That's what I said, since people started roaming the earth, we've always had these sorts of issues. But what doesn't need to go on forever is that the Brattleboro schools, according to our administrators, have some specific thoughts and actions that they feel they can take that would address a need. And I think that's part of our responsibility to address the needs if we can. It's not part of our responsibility to stomp on people and force things in, no, but it is our responsibility to look at stuff, right? So if we can all keep this in the back of our head, if we could set up, David, can we ask you to contact the ones that you just listed off?
Yeah.
Margaret and Chad and all those?
Well, unless, you know, you want to.
I know Margaret and Chad, I missed one of the names that you said, so.
Chloe Leary, who's the Pride Center, and Josh Davis, Groundworks Collaborative. I think it's, you know, I talk to some of them all, you know, regularly.
I think that green, what's her name? The green.
Emily.
Emily.
Yeah.
She should probably be invited too, because they've spent a lot of
Yeah,
time
yeah.
looking at this community through that Green Street, what's it called? Promise?
Promise communities.
Yep. Do you know her too?
I don't. So, who, let's make sure we're clear on who's,
Yes.
like, I can contact Chad, I know.
Actually, you know, probably the place to start would be to contact Chad and get recommendations from him, and Margaret as well.
Okay. Yeah.
Chad, that's what
I will
she
do
is.
that.
And then see who they recommend, because there were plenty of people at that forum that are very interested in being part of going forward and helping, you know, figure out how to do this. There's no shortage of people who want to be involved.
Not on our agenda specifically, so I guess I'm gonna jump to it now. We do need to look at dates for when we're gonna have meetings, because I think this is the type of thing we could put forth on another meeting, and maybe if we had actual dates.
Okay.
So June, currently we definitely have June 1st scheduled, which is our, over at Canal Street, which we've never met at.
That's a joint meeting too.
June
isn't it?
It's
With
supposed to be
Policy
joint
Council?
with Policy Council, I
June
mentioned
3rd.
First.
June 1st.
Why does it say June 3rd on our calendar?
June 3rd is Friday.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, it says first.
explains it.
What, you got a smudge?
Um,
Well, it's, no,
It's just
we got a plug
printed
there.
So June 1st would be over at Canal Street.
And then June.
And then June 15th would be our next normal meeting.
This is the right year, right? No, this is 14. That's the wrong year.
So I told you it was a bug.
And
That might be
That's
why it said the
13.
3rd.
That's the, here's 7/15.
So I have that
June 1.
15
Okay.
as being here again, is that right?
I want to know, sorry, if that's what we're going to do, however, because I believe it's BAM's move up thing, is that what you said?
It is.
Yeah, it is.
How many people would that affect in this group?
On June
Does
15th.
Todd have a son that graduates?
Yes. He has an 8th grader, so Todd would not be here.
So I assume Todd would rather watch his son graduate than come listen to
Well,
this.
he better.
Most likely, yeah.
When are the elementary school 6th grade ones?
Monday, the 13th.
Okay,
They're never the same, Nick.
I know, I thought I would ask though.
So, what's the feeling of the board? I'm kind of thinking if one of our members has a graduation for his son, we should not meet.
Can you meet in June if not? Because we are gonna have more
The
hires.
22nd is what I was just going to look at.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I'll be away. That's the end. Allison's done on the 19th. I'm going to be gone for a week.
Mm-hmm.
Want that?
Sure. Where? Will that be the goal setting?
Well, that's, the next question is July and August and when we're going to meet, but I'm almost wondering if we meet in July, the end of July, would they'd have a lot of hirings done. we could kind of do if we met the end of July, would the administrators have a lot of stuff kind of wrapped up that we could kind of do the normal meeting stuff and then have one in July and August where we do a goal setting one?
Well, I mean, in the summer, I don't think we have anything quite other than hiring. So,
Right, so by June 29th, would you think you'd have most of your hiring
Hope
done?
so.
And then maybe we could do one meeting in July or August that would be the goal setting and kind of forward.
August would be preferable, at least for me.
We might take
We
July
generally
off.
try to keep ourselves pretty free in July, just so we have
So people can have a vacation.
vacations and so forth.
Yeah.
So I'm suggesting we not meet in July, we only meet in August. Is that-
That's why we love you, Jeff.
We don't allow it.
Look at this happy face.
All right, so let's do the 29th, and we'll do it at EES again.
And that's gonna be summer schedule goal setting?
No, that's gonna be the last administrative one. So that we get, so that would be 5 to 6:30 or so.
So we'll do it here, at Birch
At
Street.
EES, yeah.
Okay.
And that's just regular administrative, but I would like to, on the next agenda, are you thinking on
I am, what, we need to make sure that Peter knows that we're not going to meet on, we just decided not to meet on the 15th.
I told him that I would do that, yeah.
Okay, so that
I'll
would
email him right
also
So-
include Peter.
So that would be administrative wrap up,
Oh, for the,
Oh, boy.
Peter's report on buildings, and we can revisit the preschool and community needs. Perhaps, we shouldn't have tons of administrative wrap-up, so perhaps we could actually have Peter's report, he said maybe 15 minutes. So we could have maybe an hour or so if some of these folks could come to that meeting.
that'd be great.
Would that work for everyone?
So, June 1st,
June 1st, we're still doing normal.
is that at 5 o'clock?
Here.
That's at 5 o'clock and it's over at Canal
Yeah.
Street, and it'll start with the dedication of the Rolo Park.
You guys
Okay.
doing a presentation on that?
No, we won't be doing our presentation in June.
So is that, are those monthly admin reports on that day?
Well, I don't think, yeah,
Be
but
prepared.
You can do it on paper, and we'll just, and.
you could do that, but really it's just wrapping up the year more than
Would that be
statistics
better on the
and-
29th
no,
when
no,
everything's
first.
done?
the first, yeah,
Might
you
be,
would do
yeah.
your regular. admin
Jill?
report.
Would it be better to have it on the 29th when everything is done?
Yeah, just kind of final.
This is, you know, the end of the year wrap up.
We are having one, we're
No,
having,
I mean, for the administrative
For the
reports.
admin reports.
that is up to the administrators. If you would prefer to give us like a year-end numbers report on the 29th,
Well,
Instead
June
of
1
a
is
June
May, that would be our May report, and then the 29th would be
The end
In
of it.
June,
our end of the
which
year.
I don't
makes
know what else
sense.
you would
So
have
we
in
still
there.
have to, what's that?
Would there be any,
Yeah.
is there a reason to do a June report?
I know, I was thinking you could probably just stop with the
Yeah,
first one in there.
yeah.
So as long as we'd have time, because I would expect that we'll have some hires for June 1st.
Fine. Okay, and then we want to look at August. This is always the
What happened in July?
We're
July, we're
going on
taking
vacation.
off.
Okay, I missed the memo. All right.
Missed that email.
So let's talk about August. This ought to be fun. I'll start. I'm not available from July 31st to August 14th. So that brings us to August 15th. And when does school start? Ha, I don't have this in yet. When does school start?
August,
Teachers' first day back is the 25th. New hires are starting on the 23rd and
When do the kids go?
24th. Kids go back on the
30th.
30th,
30th.
That was that, no,
7 and 9.
okay.
Students.
Okay,
Wow.
Oh, okay. Okay, six,
so 31st is
seven.
our children.
Well, except for Karen.
Yeah,
So this will be fun. I'll make this yellow and I'll mark the next day. Karen loves that when her brothers go to school before her.
You got it just the opposite. huh?
yeah,
She goes on 30th.
yeah,
they go
she goes on the
31st.
30th.
I know, that's what I put in.
Yeah.
That's what I meant.
Okay.
Okay, so that leaves us like a week and a half when the administrators are somewhat busy too for our planning meeting. Is that gonna work for anybody?
You're gone from the 1st?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, okay, so I'm back for like 2 days, if that works.
Well, I'm wondering about maybe, even though it's July, maybe the 28th or July or something like that, at the very end of the month? Because that, aside from backing up the administrators, we're gone from the 14th to the 25th and 26th.
That would work for me, otherwise I'm in town August 4th, I think. And probably, no, I
We're
don't
out of
know.
town on the 4th.
Yeah, none of us are here.
Yeah.
So are you guys around like the 28th, 29th of July?
I'm gone that last
No.
week tentatively.
So that pushes us to the week of the 15th. Does that work for any of you?
August
15th of
15th.
July?
No?
August.
Yeah.
That's a tough week for me.
Yeah.
We're going.
You're gone? Week of the 22nd. It's like bingo. Can we get a winner?
I mean, that's when the, it starts
I know, it's
on
fast.
Tuesday for you guys.
Well, our teachers don't come back into the building until the 25th. We have new teacher training, but that's, so,
It's mostly just me.
that's, yeah.
So you asking about the 24th, Wednesday?
We're into July, we're on to August 22nd, that week.
Monday,
Well, that week. And
right.
I can do
Well, I think for the most part, I mean, we're all back,
Yeah.
right? So we're all back to work.
so you want to go for the
Definitely, so.
22nd? Now, Kim
Well,
prefers not to do it during the day because you have to take a day off of work.
Well, if this is this far in advance, I could probably.
The 22nd, probably that beginning of the week, maybe the tail end of it.
I'm pretty sure we're still away. I think maybe till 24th. I'm not positive of that because I know Allison starts as well, but I'm not sure she starts that early. But we're hoping, the swim season ends, oh no, I think we're back then. The swim season ends on the 7th, or the 8th. Life is controlled by the Brattleboro swim team for us. So that week of the 22nd would work.
How about Wednesday, the 24th?
I thought you wanted Monday, you want Monday or Wednesday?
No, I'd rather not do Monday.
I don't like Mondays, I
Mondays
forget
suck.
things. I like Wednesdays because that gives me a day to prepare.
Yeah.
Okay, so Wednesday the 24th is bingo night
There we go.
there?
And we're doing it at night?
No, we're gonna do it during the day, Kim said.
Oh, Kim's,
I will
okay.
see what I can do.
What time and where?
Planning meeting. How about if we start more like 4 or something and we're done by 6 or 3?
That sounds good.
I don't care. I'm just throwing out a time. What's best for you guys? If we're gonna do it during the day, maybe you prefer to just do it during the day. Speak
Well, I'm
now.
thinking the principals are gonna be working all day long. You guys want a break in there before coming to one of our meetings?
We could eat.
What were you today?
Doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, I think Todd's remember last year,
What did Todd want to do last year? I can't remember.
He's back at school, right?
So he wanted to go later in the
I
day
thought
so
he
that it was better,
you
right?
remember that, Dave, too later?
Yeah,
I think he wanted like 3 o'clock on or something, and then that also
Yeah.
gave you the opportunity to work half a day if you
well,
wanted.
we can tentative this until we hear from him.
Right.
If we agree on the day,
Yeah,
the
we got
time,
the
that could be
date.
All right, so
Yeah.
let's go with the August 24th, Wednesday. Where do we want to have it? Here, so that it's air conditioned for all you people who like to
Yes.
freeze?
Yeah, that works.
Yeah, we may really want that.
3 p.m. to 6 p.m. is the tentative that I'm
3 to
throwing on
6,
my
okay.
calendar.
3 to 6, okay.
Now, this is not the day that you want Steve, Keith, and me, or is
No,
this?
I don't think so.
Okay,
Did
so
they
we're gonna
want to
put
see
us
what?
on.
Steve, Lyle wants to come with Steve and Keith, Steve Perrin from the high school and Keith from the middle
Keith Lighting.
school, so that we can hear about the proficiency learning. Proficiency learning. They're not professionals yet, the children.
Proficiency-based learning.
They're and they're doing this for all the other boards now, but we're behind schedule, so.
So we can put that off until September?
It's more of an FYI, it's not gonna affect us really.
Nope, we just want to make sure that you get the same information as the other boards.
So we appreciate that.
So I'll ask Barb to schedule when you get your
Work plan.
work plan in, then I'll have Barb.
So I'm supposed to talk to Peter right now here and tell him that he was gonna come on the 29th, if that works for them, right?
So, no, oops. Board meeting here, right, the week that before,
Thank you.
Okay, so, does that do what everyone thinks we need for summer planning? Sometimes we've had 2 meetings.
just talking to the,
I think we're kind of planning when we're at the end of June and we're talking about preschool, and I think that's kind of our biggest thing.
Well, I think we need to leave our options open, given the fact that there may be some resurgence in the Act 46 process.
that's that one.
We can't really.
So that does move us on to the other unfinished business. And then the only other thing left is 1%. Because I think we've just done next agenda.
Yeah, I have to straight with Barb.
That's on the 29th. I was It's,
Okay, so Act 46 update. I have no idea what to say. Everyone in this group has I've made sure you all got the emails. Mary, I don't know if I've forwarded them all to you, hopefully Andy has too, of the latest where we are. There's no meeting last week, there's no meeting this week.
There's meeting next
There's a meeting next week, once again conveniently scheduled with a lacrosse event. So, we will be in Putney at 6 p.m. next week.
Thursday.
On Thursday.
Thursday the 2nd?
The last,
Thursday the
I don't think it's the second.
May.
May
No,
26th.
Thursday the
we're still in
26th.
26th, it's before Memorial Day.
26th.
So the latest is that we did not vote, as Act 46 Study Committee did not vote last time to send it forward. And it came back then with a decision from the Board of Education that we no longer had time to be considered for the accelerated. So accelerated is off the table, there's no way to go forward with that. Although the study committee never really actually determined whether we were or not, but the time is gone anyway. So,
That's
the
6 o'clock?
study committee is going to reconvene next Thursday, and what I understand will be on the agenda, Chris Leopold, the legal advisor that we've had, will be down with us and able to answer any specific questions. We did get a piece of paper, a letter from Rebecca Holcomb, the Secretary of Education, that I hope I say wrong every time. And she said her understanding and interpretation is that the study committee, Vernon cannot resign from the study committee essentially. So at this point too, there's talk of possible dissolution, is that what it is, of the union high school? We would have to dissolve the high school, union high school, in order
Right.
for Vernon to be let out of the union high school and not, vote if the rest of the towns wanted to merge together.
Let's kick me something by saying anything stupid.
Well, I think at this point it would be fine to hear anybody's thoughts on that, because really what we were looking at is legally at the moment, we could do several things. The study committee could say we are sending it to all of the voters, Vernon included, and we want to go for a merger of everyone together, which most people have called a conventional, the same as the accelerated, except that we would no longer get the 10-cent reduction. But it would be basically the same structure. That we could also, in that letter from the Secretary of Education, she indicates that we can choose whether to call them advisable, any school advisable, or any school necessary. So that could be up to the study committee to discuss and to move forward. So that is one option. Another option would be to say that we recognize that Vernon doesn't want to be a part of it. Have the rest of the towns vote whether they want to go forward. But in order to do that, you have to dissolve the union. And I understand there's legal and financial implications, repercussions, disadvantages. I don't know if there's any advantages for the union high school in doing that. Maybe, I guess we haven't really heard that. So that would be something that we expect to hear at the next meeting, and more of that. We could also say, I guess Brattleboro could also say at this point, we're not interested in merging with anybody. We're done. Walk away.
Do we take the high school with us?
I
Not
have
dissolving
actually
it,
asked
nobody
that
else.
question, and I don't think you can unless you dissolve the union again there too. Remember, dissolving the union high school means a vote that whoever's leaving has to be let out by everybody else. So if Vernon's leaving, the rest of us say yes or no to Vernon leaving. If we want to leave, the rest of them all say yes or no if we want to.
Didn't they try this in 1861? You know, a little more forcefully, of course.
So,
Just kind of pretty good.
any thoughts from anybody that they'd like to share? Mark?
I have thoughts, but I'm not gonna share.
At least,
At least not, no, wrong forum, wrong venue.
David?
yeah, I have lots of thoughts. I think the primary one is that the study committee has been saying for 6-7 months now that because of this deadline, the focus is on putting together the articles and achieving the, getting that part of it done. And that once that was done, if it didn't result in the accelerated merger, that we would go back and look at other options.
I disagree, I'm gonna break it.
Okay.
No, I disagree, because we've said repeatedly, and I've been sitting at that study committee, and I feel like I have a right to say, we have looked at all the other options. What you cannot ever have looked at only accelerated without having looked at all the rest of the options that are on there.
That's not where I was going with what I was saying.
Well, what you just said is incorrect, and people keep saying that's all we're doing is headlong pushing into the accelerated, and we are not.
Let me give you the example that illustrates a little bit better. A number of people, including people at our public meeting, have said that they don't like the idea of advisory councils that have no power.
Leadership.
And that has been, I'd like to finish.
They're called leadership councils, not
Leadership
advisory.
What did I say?
Advisory.
Advisory, leadership councils. That they don't have any power, people don't like that, they don't support that. They'd like to look at a model that would, or a way of doing it that would allow that to happen. Because the accelerated merger doesn't allow that to happen, it hasn't been possible to look at a model that would include empowered boards, empowered leadership councils. That's one example. There have been suggestions that a lot of the consolidations, improvements, flexible ratios could be done without changing our governance structure. No one's been, the committee hasn't looked at that because that's also not part of getting the 46 done. So those are two specific things that the public has asked for several times and brought up over and over again, and the response has been, well, actually, you can't do that under this model because the law doesn't allow it. So those are the kinds of specifics that people have asked about and have been assured that if the consolidated doesn't happen, that the committee would look at that and start exploring other ways of going about it. Not to just automatically go to I mean, to me it sounds, I guess complex is kind of an understatement to think about dissolving the Union High School Board in order to do a consolidation of 4 towns that, it just seems like it's been obstacle after obstacle after obstacle, bad advice after bad advice after bad advice, starting with whether Vernon could keep choice or not, which the agency or the Board of Ed ruled out in December. Yet, the committee has continued to keep trying to find ways to do it. When something's that hard, when you have to push and push and push and push to try and get something done, and you get all this resistance and different advice and changing advice and different realities and people coming and saying one thing one day and another thing another way and opinions that are then countered by other agencies. And it just seems like when it's that hard, maybe it's time to just stop trying. Just let that go and let's look at what we can do. Maybe look at having all the boards come back and establish a leadership council along the guidelines that are in the articles and try it for a year. See how it works out. See if Brattleboro has it involved in budget building and Guilford doesn't, and they do it a different way. And look at how that would actually function with teachers and parents and administrators and school board people working on all the issues having to do with leading the school. Try that out. Have a series of public meetings, get input from people about what are you afraid, what do you want to lose, what do you want to keep, the stuff that you're supposed to be doing from the start, leaving all the money stuff out of it, all the tax stuff out of it. Just look at what do we really want for our schools, and if is combining with other schools going to do it? How important is town meeting? How important are any of these other issues? And then have a town meeting conversation and have a vote at town meeting whether to continue or not, so that everybody's involved, everybody's educated. We've got until July 1st of 2019. We've got 3 full years, more than 3 years, to come to a decision about this and decide what we want to present to the State Board of Ed. There is absolutely no hurry at this point to do that. The hurry was July 1st of this year because of the dying. That's the only pressure that has been on, the only real pressure. There is no real pressure. The only pressure now is political pressure, primarily from up here, and from a few people who really think this is that's how we should go that way. But there's been so much resistance and so many obstacles to continue down that road and just say, well, let's try that. That one, the 5 didn't work. Let's try 4. All we have to do is dissolve a high school district and figure out what to do about the bond for a $55 million high school. So it just seems like there's been enough effort, there's been enough time, enough frustration, and you people are exhausted. And it's time to just pull back, try some of these things out, like the Leadership Council, for instance, and then see where we wind up in a year. We still would have 2 years to move forward with it. And if we don't consolidate and don't have to pay all the legal fees and the transition costs, we don't need the 8 cents off the taxes because we won't be spending the money that 8 cents is intended to compensate for. So that's my thinking, is that you did your work and it was diligent and it was exhausting and it's not going to happen. So now let's try the other way. Let's try the slower, engaging people and responding and trying to come up with solutions that we like rather than the solution that the state has imposed on us. That's my comment.
Kim, your turn.
Well,
I'm good.
So I do have a couple responses to you, David, here, that I don't find factual what you're saying. The Leadership Council not having any power, that we've not looked at any other options under the accelerated only, but we have looked at other options. We have addressed the Leadership Council every time someone came and said, can you put in this, can we do this? We have. We made, and matter of fact, the lawyer at the last meeting, which you were not at, I'm assuming you probably watched, but you will have seen that the lawyer had recommended that we take out some of the powers that the Leadership Council had been explicitly assigned by what we had written. And the committee said, no, we've discussed this so much, we want those powers in there explicitly.
Mm-hmm.
So to say that the Leadership Council, quote, does not have any power is not factual. And we've gone to a lot of effort to try to make that as powerful as we can.
What power does it have? I mean, in that list, what of those things is a decision that's made and followed by the supervisory district?
There's recommendations on budget.
Recommendation, not a power.
So right now, what recommendation do we make that's an absolute power?
We set the budget and recommend it to the town to vote on.
Right.
We're
So the
responsible for
unified board
deciding,
would still be setting a budget and recommending it to the towns to vote on.
not the Leadership Council.
The Leadership
But
Council
we're talking about the power
would
of the
have-
Leadership Council.
would have the power to actually recommend things and try to put into the budget, which right now, there's no budget input that comes up through any of the teachers. There's no staff, unless the principal specifically ask for it.
They do.
I've heard from teachers that really like the Leadership Council specifically for that reason.
But again, just to focus on what powers the council has to say this is how it's going to be. Because we have the power as a board to say, that's too much, or we want more money for the enrichment program. We have that power, and that's what happens. And it goes to the town vote. A Leadership Council wouldn't have that.
They would have the power to recommend it. I think
It's
it's
not
very
power.
similar to what Green Street can do right now. Green Street can come in and say, we want to have extra money for our playground. And we, as a school board here, have to decide whether that makes sense for Green Street. We already do quite a bit of what the unified board would have to do because we already have one in one school. So I'm saying it's not that much of a change.
Yeah, obviously, people that raise that as an issue in these public meetings think it's a big change. I think Mrs. Wheelock especially, in our public meeting, was very concerned about that. She said, we come to these meetings and get informed because we have to vote on this budget.
We also went through an extreme amount of looking at that. How can we make it so that people could actually vote?
And they can't.
And the last version that we have, yes, they are voting. We've put it to an Australian ballot for every single town to vote.
Oh, for the public to vote on it, yeah. Well, the other towns already have that.
I don't think they have Australian ballot.
No,
Oh, no.
just for
Yeah, just,
To say that the study committee has not looked at any other sort of board representation is absolutely incorrect. We've
I
spent,
don't think I said that.
I took down notes of exactly what you said. We've spent a lot of time looking at how the board can be comprised. That we were told originally that it had to be based on population. It is not based on population.
Well, that's one option, but I didn't say that you hadn't been looking at options for the board structure. I'm aware of that. I'm the one that pointed out that the 8-member board was going to be, would be deadlocked all the time.
There's two changes that we made to that. One was that originally was on population based only. We changed it so that the outlying towns had considerations of that. They were concerned that Brattleboro would wield too much power, and so we've changed it so there's at-large. And we went to extremes of trying to talk to lawyers and dig and dig and dig until we could find something that worked.
Yeah, I didn't say that didn't happen.
And then we've also changed it so that it's not 8, based on the feedback that came back from the Brattleboro Community Forum. The study committee did change that, and so that it's 9. When you say that there's no pressure except for the dime, there is still pressure for next. If we finished it by next year, we get 8, 6, 4, and 2. That's still tax reductions. So that would not be until 2019 to look at that. That is another year out deadline. When you say that there's no repercussions and there's no hurry, Guilford faces, in I believe 2 years, a point where they can no longer afford to send their kids to BAMS.
Unless their citizens vote to pay more in taxes to send their kids to BAMS.
So they face a significant problem in 2 years. So there is a bit of pressure on their part as well to get some sort of a merger or something to be done, because they're very aware of what they're facing. And when you say that there's no tax reductions and we don't have any cost, I don't understand ever what you've said with that. If there's a tax rate and there's a reduction, there's a reduction. If the tax rate goes up and we have a reduction, then we have a reduction on a higher tax rate, there's still a reduction.
I think the important point, and maybe Mark, you can help with this because you were at that meeting as well with the people from the state. Those incentives are designed, they talked about it as incentives, now they have a different name for them because they're designed to offset the costs that will be incurred by consolidating.
Right.
If you think about all the properties that have to be transferred and processed by lawyers, there are going to be a lot of Caribbean vacations paid for by this. The 8 cents, the 6 and the 4 and the 2 are to cover costs that are incurred by being part of the transition. If we're not incurring those costs, our taxes aren't going to go up enough to meet that. Which means that it won't get added to the state's ed fund, and we won't wind up paying more.
So
If we could transition into a consolidated district with no cost, we would get those reductions, but it doesn't, it's not a free process, and that money's there to cover those costs.
so far,
There's no guarantee it'll be
Frank
enough to
has
cover
not
the
said
costs.
anything about having all sorts of costs for having.
But the people from the state point out that there are, and that the only place you're gonna see any savings are in the efficiencies that you develop in the process. That the incentives have
And the
not been-
efficiencies that Frank has identified are substantial.
And I think speculative.
Right. And I think the school board said that eventually that the incentives are a misleading term for what the 10, 8, 6, 2
That's
is.
why I just call them reductions, because they are reductions.
Right. Maybe.
No,
But again, I think
They are.
the complexity of that and the fact that reasonable people can't agree with what that means is another indication of the problems with the law and another reason to go slow and figure out what's actually gonna happen. Because we're dealing with speculative numbers and interpretations.
we're
We
always
don't
going to
have
deal with
any-
speculative numbers,
It's just, you're choosing which one you wanna believe in.
as are you.
Yep. Yeah, and we can get past that by actually estimating what these things are gonna cost.
Which is what Frank has done. And you
Where
choose.
has he got any legal fees for transitioning to this
That's Frank,
process?
he's not here today, but I haven't seen that. That's not been part of what he's been concerned
No.
about, Frank, with.
There's no transition cost in the budget numbers that he uses to project. There's no increase in our budget either, which is typically 2%.
Okay. Might I suggest that the conversation currently on the table might be a sidebar and better served?
No, I think it's one that we need to have publicly, and I want to hear if the administration has anything else to say. It's, the whole process is one that requires people to come to the table and speak honestly. Some folks have spoken very honestly at the table, some folks have decided to do it more in different ways. So being quite clear and open, I think, is important, right?
Oh, I have nothing against clear and open. This thing hasn't been clear since it was open, but be that as it may. No, please, by all means.
But that said, I really didn't have anything else to say to continue the conversation either. Anybody else have anything?
Well, I think we're educators. And this is a very political situation. So, we see a lot of changes throughout the state in education. We know that as a state, we're losing students. I forget the exact numbers, but over a 10 or 12 year period, we lost about 25% of our students, which hasn't...
23% in 12 years.
I'm sorry?
23% in 12 years.
23% in 12 years. It hasn't had a dramatic impact on us as it has a lot of our neighbors. A lot of our other union towns, I think, have suffered more than we have with that. Our high school, middle school numbers are down significantly. When we look at communities just north of us, like Leland and Gray, out at 7 through 12, they're down to about 300 kids next year. Twin Valley, I think, is less than that. Chester, 7 through 12, has 300 or so kids. So those reduced numbers really compromise the quality of education for students. So when you have that fewer students in your high school or 7 through 12, you cannot be a comprehensive high school, one that people can afford. So I think they're reaching a crisis proportion. So it doesn't dramatically or directly affect us, but I think statewide, we talk about equity for kids, and we talk about sustainability. It's because of that. So I wouldn't want to send my kids to a school where there were no AP classes, or limited language options, or just limited options for kids. I think high school is the time we want to have maximum options for kids. So how we address that as a state, I don't know, but it sounds like this isn't going to be the way, at least for this district right now, to address it.
And I agree with Andy, it's very political, it's very heated, but every day we still go in and have to do what we're hired to do and do our jobs, and whether we're consolidated or not, we're going to go in and do our jobs.
And I guess I'll wrap it up with saying that I think that the conversation, it makes me very sad, because the conversation continually wraps back to the adults and very rarely comes to the kids. And when I look at this myself personally, I see the inequities between our towns. And I see where the merger can help with the inequities and what we can offer to the kids. And I feel like we're put on the school board for two reasons. The first is to make sure our kids get a quality education, and the second is to make sure the taxpayers get a good value for their money. And I also see where we could make a better deal for our taxpayers if we went through with the merger. But the conversations are thrown aside because of other agendas and other concerns. So the only other thing on our agenda right now is the 1%. And we went through that 2 meetings ago.
They were emailed to us, and we looked at them by
Right.
email.
But we had it on the agenda that we'd all seen them, right?
Yeah.
So now at this point, we need to have any questions, and then let's have a motion first and then have discussion.
I move we approve the 1% applications as presented.
Second.
Any discussion on the 1%?
Just observations.
Go for it.
There were lots of, reading it online was different than paging through it. So I was sort of, like more scanning than reading, and I was surprised, not surprised, but I noted that lots of them, a pretty significant majority have to do with behavior issues, PBIS and STEP program, which is kind of interesting that we talk about pre-K and it just keeps on going right on through. I had one question, two of them were from a principal, 4 teachers And I think we might want to have a look at the wording at some point in the contract and see if that's how it may be that that's perfectly fine, but typically I thought it was for staff. But it says for others, so like we could ask for one as well, but I'm not sure about that. And then the question I have is, how many more applications were there than the ones that you're presenting? Do you have a lot that you turned down, or do you?
Can I ask for you to clarify what you meant on that last comment about, because my name is on a couple of these, but I'm certainly not being paid as a stipend, but.
No, that's not what I meant.
So can you tell me what you meant by that?
Okay,
then?
the teacher didn't submit it.
You want the file here so you can find it?
No, I know what you're saying.
Oh, okay.
And it was submitted, the principal wanted the teacher to be able to do something, rather than the teacher wrote the application to do it. And I just don't know if that's the intention of the contract clause.
Okay.
So at some point, clarify, the programs, the idea is great, and it's, fits right into the criteria.
When we all sat down, there was a lot of requests, and a lot of these requests we've chunked down, at the same time trying to honor a majority of the requests, which I think we have, because for the most part, the requests that we get are really valid and good ideas. I think Green Street, we did cut one. It was a special ed request for a training of a veteran teacher, providing a training around some testing. And we felt like we could eliminate that from 1% and send that teacher to a actual professional workshop, so to say, from 1%. So I think that was one reduction that I do know that we made. And then Green Street specific, we reduced a bunch of these by a day, so that we could honor most of the requests, or if not all the requests, besides that one example.
Yeah, we didn't eliminate any applications. We trimmed some in the amount of time, or in others, there may have been a cost associated with purchasing materials or supplies. And in some cases, we decrease that or eliminate that with the expectation that we'll take that out of our budget. And just the one that, just to respond to what you said a moment ago, Dave, the one from Academy where I actually made it out, but it was after several conversations with that teacher, Deb Cardane, in trying to create a model for peer coaching. So I made that out just to save her time.
It's a really great idea.
Right, but
The other one was for two teachers to work together.
yeah, we talked about that, and I just took the liberty of making that out because one of the teachers is in New York. She's not moved up here yet, and the other one is in 3 buildings.
And a first-year teaching.
And first-year teacher. So I talked to her about it, and then she wasn't aware of what it was, so I explained to her what it was, and I said, look, I'll make this up for you and submit it. So.
Yeah. I think, it's supposed to be coming, that could be seen as a management decision to put a couple people together to work together to do work that they, for not disciplinary, but, for something they need to strengthen, rather than this is meant to expand and give people opportunities to do things that they can't otherwise do, versus aren't otherwise doing.
Yeah, I'd say that it was a management discussion, but the decision to participate was certainly the teachers.
Oh, and
They want to do it.
I can also speak to the other 2 that we eliminated. The behavior support ones, Green Street had a school-based one, Oak Grove did as well. However, Shelley Wilson is running one for all 3 town schools together, so we felt like it was just double dipping, so that's why those 2 were removed as well.
And the one that is for the behavior that I filled out for step integration is because we're starting a new step program. And we currently, at the time, we didn't do our BCBA. We didn't have a certified BCBA. We now do, so we do know that one is special ed and one is our BCBA. We'll be working on that, so that I completed. The one I did for Catherine, that's my name, Catherine Mason, actually, similar to what Andy said, I just happened to complete it for her. She's going to be working with the intensive special ed educator, looking at a program called Zones of Regulation, and it's around self-regulation strategies for Tier 2 students. And that will be like a one-day. Zones of Regulations happens to be a curriculum. There might be other curriculums, but they're considering that as being something that they might be using with kindergarten and possibly in first grade, so that they would get some of that self-regulation strategies, social skills strategies built in, so that hopefully, like Andy was saying earlier, that some of the behaviors, if we can start younger, developing some concrete social skill strategies for these students, some of their behaviors will start to diminish over time. And then the other one, again, that I filled out was a PBIS check-in, check-out. That's Tier 2. That money is that is a combination of as the school-based PBIS coordinator. And Marisa Duncan-Holly is the district coordinator for all PBIS schools. She has grant money to pay for Terry Brooks, who's going to do a check-in, check-out training at our school. And at the time, rather than sending us to BEST, which is like 3 times as much money, we're doing a 2-day training locally. And again, at the time, I've got a PBIS team of 8 individuals, and so we're going to be holding out for 4 slots, including myself will be there. But 4 staff members from Guilford and 4 staff members from Oak Grove will be combined to be part of this PBIS training. So I'm sorry that it's, it does appear to be a little confusing when it's all moving on all
I
those.
didn't even notice those.
But that's what those 3 that have my name, but they're oftentimes they're related to kind of unsure of the time when we have to, back in April, unsure exactly who might be going, but yet it's a direction of it that we're going within our school with PBIS and our MTSS model.
I have one quick question, I think. This one is $3,000. It's Academy Green Street, Oak Grove, but it's WSESU because it's a bunch of the people that are.
That's
So
the
the-
Shelley Wilson.
So why would we, there's no 1% for the WSESU staff? So why are we paying for all of it?
I don't think you are paying for all of it. Barb talked to me today. So WSCSU is paying $2,451 and Bratttown is paying $562.
We have the total written down as 3,000.
Yeah, and she's got it broken out down.
So we're only supposed to look at the Brattleboro part.
Yes, you're going to approve maybe
Same with this one.
Yeah, there are a few of them.
Where it says revised.
Yeah.
So we're doing the revised, the 667.25 instead of the 3,000.
Do we need to mark that as just Brattleboro part, okay,
Yeah.
like that?
Sure.
It'll work?
And there might be a few places on there where Marisa Duncan-Holly is. Did you see any of those?
I think that's one that she has right
This one
there.
right here.
Yeah, there are a few that Marisa went through and
Yeah, here,
pulled
this
out
is-
the,
Revised over here too.
Yep.
That's what, okay.
So will then Barb put in the actual amount approved down at the bottom once they figure?
yes.
Okay.
Okay, so then any other questions, or
I think this is pages.
so we'll go ahead and approve, the motion is already on the floor, so all in favor of the motion to approve? Any abstentions, denials, anything else? Only other thing I just thought of for the agenda quickly is that Ron is supposed to be retiring in a year, about a year from, 13 months from now. That's still on track, right? He hasn't changed his mind?
I have not heard.
So I really think we need to be looking for a superintendent and get that process going. And I wonder whether we all would like to make a formal motion to send it on over to the supervisor union, please.
That's you?
Move forward, yeah.
Makes sense. I don't know if we need a motion to do it, I mean, the reps could just bring, well, how do you get on the SU
I
agenda?
don't know, let's do a formal motion first, so.
There's a Monday night, is the next one.
Next one, yeah.
Yes.
Next SU meeting? or
Yes,
finance?
it's Monday.
No, next Monday's.
Why do I never hear about these things?
It hasn't been announced yet.
No,
Why, that just kills me. Why do the SU meetings get such little notice?
wait a
It
minute.
drives me insane.
More?
Yeah, one member has to sign.
So Monday nights,
Monday night, I'm not sure exactly where it is, but
Vernon,
he's
I think.
right. It's
how come
Vernon?
you knew? Because the finance is open?
Yeah, there's a,
So what does this say, 23rd?
yes.
In Vernon?
So what's the motion?
Well, I don't know if they wanted to make a motion, Jane, good question. You all want to make a motion, or we'll just bring it up?
We'll just bring it up under new business.
I think it's probably worth, let's make a motion so that then you can send it to Amy and it'll get on the agenda. Because the agenda hasn't come yet, so it's not.
Yeah, that's true. All right.
So I move that we ask the SU to begin the process of exploring changing new superintendent.
The search committee?
Search, thank you.
You're welcome.
Got a second over there, Mark?
Absolutely.
Any discussion, all in favor?
I would just say, I would just say that, you know, based on, you know, verifying that Ron is still on the retirement track.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea.
I got the dash 46,
And not
he changed
just-
his mind.
And not just, you know, so, you know, he doesn't say, well, I'm staying, why are you kicking me out?
Your job's gonna get so easy.
So,
Yeah.
ask SU to begin the process of searching for a new superintendent.
We're creating a search committee, yeah.
After confirming that Ron is still retiring.
Yeah, there's an old cowboy
his
song that says that you're gonna bury me, make sure I'm dead first.
Alrighty then, now shall we vote on it?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I have a motion? Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.